13. Samodivi after dinner. It was much colder now than it had been on the way in. Maya wrapped her scarf an extra time around her neck and hunched the backpack more securely onto her shoulder. Valko was looking at her, she could tell. "All right, I'm sorry," she said finally. She couldn't take it any more. "I've messed everything up, of course. First I let the Gargoyles tackle you, and then there your parents were, and I opened my mouth that way like a total idiot. I'm sorry." "I wasn't thinking any of that," said Valko. "I'm not even sure what happened on the roof, but I think you rescued me from that thing, whatever it was. And my mother, well, she almost prefers people to be unpredictable." "But it's not going to help." Valko shrugged. "I am appreciative," he said. "Even if I'm packed up and gagged and sent in a suitcase back to Bulgaria, I will always remember that you tried bravely to save me." He was teasing her, but he was teasing her nicely. Maya shook her head at him, but just then she tripped over a rough spot in the sidewalk, and the backpack swung around and knocked the back of her elbow quite hard. "You all right?" said Valko, and he looked down to see what she had tripped on. "Whoa, look at this." Her first thought was that an old iron pipe had somehow broken through the pavement, but then she saw the roughness of the thing, the way it had thrust its way up through the sidewalk and slithered along for a while before diving back down under the surface. "Valko, what is this? It wasn't here before, was it?" She backed up so hastily she ran right into a man passing by. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I fell. The pipe. What is it?" Valko was steadying her with one hand by now. The man smiled politely and dusted himself off where she had bowled into him. "You are not from here, I see, mademoiselle," he said, and in the light of the street lamps his eyes had the most unsettling sheen of vagueness to them. "They are, of course, the roots of the tower. The racines du fel. In this neighborhood we know. The tower's roots can be treacherous at night. Attention! Be careful! Beware!" They watched him walk down the sidewalk, his legs expertly dodging the racines du fel wherever they had lurched through the smooth surface of the sidewalk. "That's not possible," said Valko finally. He dropped to his knees and rapped his knuckles on the thick length of iron that had tripped up Maya's toes. "It's not possible. What did he say? The roots of the tower? Towers don't have roots." "It's the strangeness again," said Maya, rubbing her elbow. "It's the loophole spreading. Only it's changing things more now. It's getting worse and worse every time. You heard what the Gargoyles said, the loophole thing, stuff becoming what it possibly could be instead of what it already is." "And Gargoyles don't talk either," said Valko. For a moment he sounded a little lost, but then he shook his head and became himself again. "Oh, well," he said. "What did you do to your elbow?" "The egg whacked it when I tripped," said Maya. That turned some little light on in her head. "Oh, how stupid! The egg! I totally forgot." She unzipped the backpack to show him. The Gargoyle's egg, a little chilly after all those hours of neglect, but still pockmarked with words she didn't recognize. It glittered a little under the streetlight. "What's it saying there, Valko? Don't be mad at me about this egg." "The whole reason I brought it along was to ask you." Valko studied the egg for a moment with distaste. "There's that 40 all over the place," he said. 40, 40, 40. Can't we throw this thing into the river?" "No, we can't," said Maya. "But maybe it's like what the man said at the table. 40 days for a Bulgarian vampire to—" "There's no such thing as vampires," said Valko. "Oh, don't look at me that way. There's really not." His breath was making little clouds in the air as he studied the egg. "Keep me safe. We saw that before. And your name. That's in several places. And Zmei. I don't remember that being there. Here it is again. Heart of a Zmei. Life in the heart of a Zmei. Maya, Zmei, Maya." "Zmei," sang out another voice, not far away. Maya and Valko jumped, and Maya's hands fumbled so badly that she very nearly dropped the egg right into the iron root, which would surely have been the end of it. When the egg was back safe in the crook of her arm, she saw that Valko had frozen still, right beside her. "Maya," he said quietly, "behind us. Look." Maya looked up and around, and for a moment she, too, was unable to move or speak. How had they not noticed them before? A group of women in business suits had begun to gather on the sidewalk behind them. "Oh, no, let's leave," she said. But when they turned to go the other way, they saw that another handful of women, swaying slightly and humming, had wandered around the corner ahead and were waiting there, and threading among them was a deeper column of shadow. "Okay," said Valco. "This is where we move fast and stay calm. Here we go." He put his arm around her, which did help, and they moved fast down the street, fast and quiet, with their eyes on the ground to avoid sudden iron roots. All around them, however, the humming grew and became shriller, and arms were now jostling them, arms and shoulders and gracefully moving hands. The Samodevi were on every side of them now. They were beginning to sing. Maya caught a glimpse of a shadow curling along on her left side. She had the distinct impression that the shadow might actually be staring at her from shadowy, formerly purple eyes. She clenched her hands more tightly around the gargoyle's egg and kept walking. "Maya," sang the Samodevi. "Maya is a zmei, a juicy-hearted zmei." "What's a zmei?" Maya whispered to Valco as they walked forward through the crowd, their heads still down as if fighting a strong wind. It was harder going now. The singing women were closing in. "Means dragon," said Valco, pushing his way through the next swaying knot of Samodevi. "I wish they'd leave us alone. Don't they have places they should be at 9 or 10 p.m.? I wish they'd just leave." "Hello, little girl from the party," said a voice Maya had heard somewhere before. She looked up and felt slightly sick. It was the writer, Pernithia Jane Blakely, swaying with the others, her hair completely wild now, and that streak of white glittering coldly in the lamplight. "Are you coming to sing with us?" said Pernithia Blakely. "I can't," said Maya. "You should leave," said Valco to the writer. "Go home and rest." "But the shadow says this is Maya," said the writer. "The shadow says something about you not really being a little girl at all, little girl. Apparently you are a—" "Zmei," said the chorus of swaying women all around. "Keep moving," whispered Valco. "Keep pushing your way through." "I am not a dragon," said Maya. It was really beginning to tick her off, but it was harder and harder to move, with the Samodevi gathered so closely around them. "Dragon, dragon," said the writer, and she hummed a little tune to accompany the word. "The shadow needs you, you know. It needs a dragon like you." She leaned forward to whisper. "It needs to eat up your heart for the magic. Hey, what's that you're carrying?" Suddenly the gargoyle's egg seemed very naked in Maya's hands. The poor egg! She tried to tuck her coat around it. Trickles of ice were running down her spine. She didn't like being called a dragon, and she didn't like the sound of juicy-hearted either. If this was the gargoyle's helpful translation of the spell into Bulgarian, she didn't think much of it so far. "Something you care about?" hissed Pernithia Blakely. The column of shadow was so close. It seemed to pass right through the writer, passed through and came closer to Maya, a colder darkness within the ordinary cold dark. "Something you'd follow to the ends of the earth? Something you'd give anything to protect, maybe, little dragon girl?" And then, in one terrible sudden gesture, the crazy writer reached in and snatched the egg right out of Maya's hands, took the egg and held it over her head, and gave an entirely inhuman shriek of triumph, while Maya shouted and jumped at her, no use, and Valco shouted and jumped after Maya, pulling her away. The Samodevi laughed and sang and flowed around Maya and Valco and away, moving faster than real people should be able to move in any version of the universe that made any kind of sense. Sooner than eye blinks, the street was empty, the horrible singing women just a fading echo, Maya sobbing for breath and sobbing with rage, and Valco very still and helpless and miserable next to her. She had sworn to protect the gargoyle's egg, the gargoyle's beautiful, lovely, precious egg. She had sworn to protect it, and now it was gone.